Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Journalism and New Media Studies, SOJNMS. Bachelor of Arts, Journalism and Digital Media, BAFJDM. Semester I, BNM 022 Techniques of Reporting. Block-2 Reporting, Types and Tools. Unit-6 Interview, a Journalistic Tool, 6.0 Introduction. One of the most authentic source of information in journalism in interview. Whether it is a one-day event or a lifetime success story, interview format delivers its credibility. It is a one-to-one interaction that takes place between an interviewer and interviewee. It can take place face-to-face personally or by phone or even through video calls. With technological advancements, the techniques of interviewing have evolved too. Interviewee is a respondent and he or she may be a celebrity or a news source or an expert of any field or a victim of crime, disaster or an official of any organization or a distinguished personality. It is important to mention that interview is a conversation between two persons only. If the dialogue is not one-to-one, it is not an interview. Information obtained in an interview is regarded as the most authentic and reliable piece of journalistic content, as far as the personal opinion, views and perception of an interviewee is concerned. The interviewer is a representative of the target audience. He asks questions on audience behalf. So if you are taking an interview, please remember to put yourself at your target audience's place and then frame the questions. For example, you are interviewing a doctor and your target audience is general public who is not highly educated. You might know many things about medicine, but you would not use technical terminologies or ask questions beyond general understanding. But the questions will be restricted to the benefit of your audience. You are also not allowed to impose one's own opinion, views and perception to the final output at the end. 6.1 Learning Outcomes. After going through this unit, you will be able to understand clear definition of interview, prepare for an interview, learn interviewing skills, and describe different formats of interview. 6.2 Requirements of an interview. First and foremost, it is very important to understand the process of an interview. The clarity of what result are you expecting from the interview is required too. The interviewer must have proper information about the interviewee and also should have a good grasp on the subject of interview. It is very important to know your target audience for whom you are taking that interview. Background preparation helps the interviewer to take a good interview, or else it may not solve the purpose. Now let us understand in detail what preparations are to be done for taking a good interview. 6.2.1 Knowing the interviewee. If a news reporter is interviewing a person, then it means the guest is connected with the relevant news. Identifying whom to interview is very important. Wrong or irrelevant interviews may prove to be a waste of time and other resources. You have to make sure that the interview will add something valuable to the news item. To make the news more valuable and newsworthy, you must ask yourself what is the credibility of the interviewee and how well are they connected to the news piece you are writing. For example, in an event of child abuse, you can interview a child psychologist, a witness, a POSCO Act specialist, etc. When you decide whom to interview, make sure you introduce that expert to the audience clearly. Their opinions should be mentioned without any biases. Selection of interviewee depends on nature and temperament of the program in electronic media and nature and temperament of magazine or page in a newspaper or news website. Apart from news sources or victims of a crime, disaster or an official of any organization, who are usually interviewed to enrich the news content, there is also a wide range of interviewees from the fields of politics, social work, arts, literature, sports, fashion, cinema, economics, commerce, industry and other miscellaneous domains, which shares their due space in the feature section of media. The audience connects with these types of distinguished personalities. 6.2.2 Getting an appointment. It is an important task to meet your guest for the first time and making them comfortable to talk to you about their views and feelings. The interviewer should have a warm personality and welcoming nature to establish a connection with the guest. Before that, it is most important task to get him or her ready to share her feelings and opinions with you as an interviewer. In cases of interviewing interviewees from fields of politics, social workers, arts, literature, sports, fashion, cinema, economics, commerce, industry and other miscellaneous domains, getting an appointment of the distinguished personality is a tough task, because these personalities have a busy schedule of engagements and seriously lack the availability of free time to converse with an interviewer. Confidence and reliance in the role and representation of a journalist or media organization makes the process of getting appointment easier. When you are a part of media world, you try to develop various links and contacts to approach such distinguished personalities. Interviewees are contacted through phone calls or email to fix an appointment and venue of a prearranged interview. Journalists keep in contact with various public relation organizations who also help in arranging these appointments. On the other hand, sometimes, some celebrities approach a well-known interviewer or media organization to offer his or her interview. This is done as a part of a public relation drill or a promotion of any product endorsed by these celebrities. While taking appointment for interview, following points should be kept in mind. An interviewer should clearly communicate his name and a brief introduction to the interviewee. One should also make sure that the interviewee gets your contact details, which can be used in case he or she wants to call you back. The interviewee should be made aware of the media organization and medium where the proposed interview will feature. The interviewer should explain the purpose of the interview, elaborating the planned theme of the proposed interview. The appointment should be made formally through email or contacting the representative of the guest. The interviewer should be clear and precise in communication. The deadline of the interview should also be conveyed, so that the interviewee can give an appointment beforehand. In a case of interviewing for a news report, a reporter has to record the first-hand experiences of guest. In case you are interviewing a victim many times, they choose to abstain from speaking. This can be due to trauma of victimization or fear of someone who may have stopped him or her from commenting or sharing their sufferings. Also, distrust on an interviewer and lack of confidence can restrict a possible news source from being a part of the interview process. In such cases, you have to make extra efforts to establish trust and might give some time and space to the victim. They must be treated with utmost respect and care. The sensitivity of matter should also be maintained. 6.2.3 Background preparation of an interview. Following background preparations are required for an interview. In case an interviewee asks for a brief, written introduction of the theme of proposed interview, it should be communicated. Interviewer should research about the interviewee beforehand. Past accomplishments should be noted and other useful information should be known. Interviewer should prepare sample questions and may send it to the interviewee as per the requirement. After getting the appointment, an interviewer should email a tentative planning of the interview. This planning should include date, time, venue, theme and duration of the interview. The interviewee must be aware of the mode of transportation to the venue. Who will arrange transportation of interviewee to the venue should also be made clear. On the predetermined date of the interview, the interviewer should send a gentle reminder to the interviewee via a text message or email, reminding of the scheduled interview in the day. Always double-check the recording devices for any technical issue and do a sample recording for cross-checking. 6.2.4 Research for interview. Research is an integral part of taking a good interview. You must research well before conducting an interview. First of all, an interviewer should go through the recent works of the interviewee. Also, an interviewer should have a vivid understanding of the nature and sensitivity of the issue to be discussed and explored in prescribed span of the interview. An interviewer can go through books, check archives, and consult online materials available. The interviewee also feels more interested and get more satisfaction with intriguing questions and confident anchor. The impact generated is also great when the interviewer is prepared well. Apart from researching subject matter, an interviewer should design and structure a list of questions to be asked. Although, framing of some questions in an interview may be extempore, but it is wiser to have a set of questions prepared beforehand and serve them in an appropriate sequence during an interview. After due preparation and research on subject matter and interviewee, an interviewer should learn to be free from all kind of prejudice and preconceived notions. He or she should be aware of facts, but should not implicate his or her personal views and ideology while conducting an interview. 6.2.5 Things to remember in any interview. While conducting an interviewer should keep in mind following do's. Interviewer should be well prepared with the content and organized with technical setup. Interviewer should be vigilant. He must observe the body language of the interviewee and be able to ask good impromptu questions too. Interviewer should be polite. He must give respect with words and gestures. If they think interview is going out of context, they can use creative methods and friendly gestures to turn things around. Interviewer should be precise. He must ask questions in short and simple language. Interviewer should stay calm and composed and sensitive towards the interviewee. Interviewer should follow all the protocols. He must stick to the allotted time frame and give a proper conclusion within that. Interviewer should be well versed with the correct pronunciation of interviewee's name and other related things. Interviewer should frame good and unique questions to give that interview an edge over others. But the uniqueness should get along with the theme of the interview. Interviewer should be to the point and punctual. While conducting an interviewer should keep in mind following list of don'ts. Interviewer should not beat about the bush. Interviewer should not put his words in interviewee's mouth. Interviewer should not deviate from a predefined subject of the interview. Interviewer should not blame or charge an interviewee of any kind of crime, corruption or controversy without physical availability of a valid documentary proof in this context. Interviewer should not talk on personal issues of the interviewee, unless he or she has taken permission beforehand. Interviewer should not misquote anyone to have an interviewee's comment to create a sensation. Interviewer should not ask a hypothetical question to an interviewee, as these questions are meaningless and never leads to a decisive conclusion. 6.3 The process of an interview in skills required. The interviewer is representing the target audience. Interviewing techniques are learnt and achieved through continuous process of observing and getting experiences through performance or by assisting others in conducting interviews. The process of interview can be divided into following phases. 6.3.1 Phase 1, just before the start. The first phase of an interview is mostly not visible by others. It consists of mostly groundwork and leads to starting of an interview. While conducting an interview, a journalist should be polite, attentive, precise and to the point. He or she should talk in a sensible and straightforward manner. Before starting a formal interview, the journalist must check following things. There should be least distraction at the venue of the interview. The atmosphere of the venue should be favorable for one-to-one conversation. Presence of any person or material which can cause distraction should be kept away from the surroundings of the interview. Mobile phones should be switched off. If recording is being done on the mobile phone, then flight mode should be turned on. Check the functioning of instruments of recording interview. The conversation in an interview cannot be remembered by human brains. Either it has to be noted down or recorded for future reference. The interviewer must check that his pen is working well and he has enough blank papers in case the interview is to be noted down. In the case of interviews for television or radio, it is mandatory to check that the required recording device are working properly. The rationale of the interview should be explained to the interviewee. Before starting the talk, interviewer should briefly introduce and explain the topics on which the interviewee has to respond. This prior explanation gives interviewee adequate time to prepare to respond in the interview with accuracy. Interviewer should thank the interviewee for giving an appointment. This makes the interviewee feel good. With a friendly start, he or she can come forward with some new and fresh revelation, maybe completely unknown to the interviewer. After checking and assuring about the above-mentioned points, an interviewer should start a formal conversation. 6.3.2 Phase 2, Conducting an interview. Second phase, or we can say the execution phase, begins once all the preparations are been completed. Now the interviewer has to make sure that interview proceeds in accordance with the theme. The interviewer look to get maximum response from the interviewee and also reveal some hidden facts. For this purpose, the interviewer should keep in mind the following things. Interviewer should welcome the guest in a proper manner and then pose the first question. The introduction part should be very crucial as it establishes the context of the interview and also helps audience to connect with the interview. It should be creatively executed. Interviewer should also highlight the importance of occasion of interview. The style and feel of the interview should be according to the theme and time. For example, if it's a sad or serious topic, the interviewee should speak in that manner. Even if it is an interesting question, there should not be overexcitement in voice, gesture or words. Beginning of interview with friendly queries and comments builds trust and a soothing environment. He or she expects a friendly conversation that may not push him or her in an awkward situation. It engages interviewee to the whole process of the interview so that he or she starts enjoying and contributing more to the interview. In this way, the content thus generated acquires better off and more interesting substance. To reveal a hidden matter, an interviewer should outline the basic idea of the subject and asks interviewee of his or her comment. But, the interviewer should not start teaching or preaching. Many times, the journalist knows the details and truth of the subject matter to be discussed and he or she needs only authentication, affirmation and substantiation for the interviewee. In this type of situation, one should not start with that one desired question. It may happen that the interviewee cancels the talk to avoid answering any uneasy question. At first, an interviewer needs to attain a basic comfort level with interviewee. Therefore, the conversation should start with easy and relaxing questions. The interviewer should make interviewee feel comfortable and confident. An interviewer should avoid types of question which could possibly be answered in terms of only yes or no. Answer in terms of only yes or no does not put significant value in the content of the interview. Interviewer should speak less and allow interviewee to speak more. After asking a question, interviewer should remain silent and let interviewee to speak as much as it suits the schedule and format of the interview. The interviewer should never interrupt an interviewee unless the latter is shifting from the basic theme of the conversation or misinterpreting the question asked. Questions asked by interviewers should be clear, precise and to the point. An interviewer should not repeat the same questions and should never complicate the talk. Questions should be such that demand to the point answers and explanations in a polite manner. It should never be baseless blaming, denouncing or indecent provocation by an interviewer. Remember that an interview is a conversation and it should not become a confrontation. It is responsibility of an interviewer to have full control over the interview. Questions should remain around core theme of interview. Conversation should not deviate to other domain of issues and questions. In process of having control over the interview, an interviewer uses some simple interviewing tools known as bridge and flag. Bridge is the tool through which an interviewer smoothly makes an effective transition between topics. Like while walking, one safety crosses over a river through a bridge. In the same way, an interviewer tends to switch over from one topic to another. There are some proven phrases and sentences like, "You may be correct, but we need to know, in addition to what you said, our concern is," and, very politely, "I need to mention that our study shows a different picture." Work as a bridge in an interview. Other tool of controlling a conversation in an interview is to flag. Generally, an interviewer uses the technique of flagging to highlight a specific comment or instance revealed in an interview. It can be done by stressing on any specific note by verbally flagging it with phrases like "most important fact," or "a critical point," or "point to be remembered." The interviewer should be attentive and show his or her full involvement through the body language. He or she should be full of empathy, but should also maintain a distance from the interviewee. Here, empathy builds confidence for the interviewer, but on the other hand, maintaining a distance helps him or her to raise questions as an indifferent entity. An interviewer should be aware of the time and accordingly should schedule the questions and give appropriate time for their answers. He or she should not be trapped in one issue. He should have the ability to forego an unnecessary discussion and turn the discussion to an interesting and meaningful plane. In the case of radio or television interviews, an interviewer should follow the instructions given by the program producer, who virtually controls the programming of the interview and instructs the interviewer from the control room with help of modern communication technology, available at studio or OB vans, outside broadcasting vans. If an interviewer misses a name or quotation used by the interviewee, he or she should ask and clarify it before the summation. In case an interviewer finds any inaccuracy or error in the interviewee's submission, one can point it out and confirm what the speaker actually wanted to say. In cases of audiovisual interview, an interviewer should keep pace with proceedings of the interview. It should neither to be too fast or too slow. The pace of interview should be moderate and should be able to entertain the audience. An audiovisual interviewer should be the perfect master of using voice to draw attention and emphasize on a topic or transition from off a topic. He or she should be aware of excellent use of pause, tone, words and voice modulation in the interview. Interviewer should be full of energy, but should never try to use jargons to draw undue attention. If an interview is being conducted for visual media, an interviewer should also take care of his clothing and makeup. Background of the studio or shooting spot should be soothing and there should be good visual impact. In an interview for visual media, facial expression of an interviewer should be polite and sober. One should smile at appropriate comment only. Gestures should be gentle and an interviewer should not pose to distract anyone. Shoulders should not be hunched and interviewer should sit straight and not lean on one side. 6.3.3 Phase 3, Concluding an interview. Conclusion is a very important step as it highlights the key points and attract attention of the audience towards what this interview has given them. Altogether, in this phase, an interviewer should clear any doubt that may occurred in the ongoing talk and have clarification on any topic that has not been answered satisfactorily. Interviewer can also make an appeal to the audience or stress on a social message connected to the topic. When an interviewer thinks that he or she has finished the talk, one last question may be asked. Anything else you want to share with us and convey to our readers, audience? If the interviewer needs photographs of the interview, he or she should either assign this task to a photographer or click it him or herself after the end of formal interview conversation. The interviewee should have contact details of interviewer and vice versa. In case of an important issue, if interviewee wants to update any information, he should feel free to connect with the interviewer, so that there remains a chance of updated interview till the deadline or closing for print of the edition. In case of print media, in case of electronic media, exchange of contact details of interviewer and interviewee can be manifested in future prospects of obtaining any updates on the issue. At last, it is courtesy to thank and convey parting salutation to the interviewee. 6.3.4 Phase 4, Editing and Presentation. The final product that the audience will get to read, see or hear depends on this last phase of editing. The final presentation of an interview depends on the medium of its dissemination and format of the column, in print media, and the program, in electronic media. Let us remember a few points while editing the interview. Heading of the interview should be precise and representing the most important revelation in the interview. In case of electronic media, the starting has to be short and apt. Make sure that the interview start with a brief introduction of the interviewee and appropriate description of the subject matter discussed. Highlights of interview can be offered as a box item. In case of electronic media, important points highlighted by the anchor should not be cut because of repetition, although too much repetition causes problem. So make sure highlight doesn't sound boring. Transcription of recorded interview should be perfect and only grammatical errors should be corrected. Questions asked in real-time interview and their answers can be rearranged to make reading more interesting, smooth and flawless. But, in this exercise, meaning and sense of responses of the interviewee should remain the same as said in real-time interview. Language of the question asked may be made more catchy, but it should mean and sense exactly the same as the question asked in the interview. While answering a question, it may happen that an interviewee starts saying more than the answer of the asked question. If these points are otherwise relevant and important, then they may be included in the interview as an answer of a suitable question. If the interviewee has made any mistakes or hurt sentiments of a community, country, then those parts should be edited. Repetitions or extra talk should also be eliminated. Editor should not edit in such a way that changes or gives twist to what the interview mean. The final interview should seem like a story from start to end. If necessary, the sequence of questions can be changed while editing. There are two types of interviews in electronic media. 1. Live interview. In live interview gets broadcasted or telecasted in real time and there is no space for post-interview editing, so the anchor or the interviewer has to be more careful. By chance they make any mistake, then they should be able to cover up instantly. The anchor should be aware of cues given to him. For example, start, wrap up. There is a phone call etc. 2. Recorded or edited interview. In these types of interviews, editing can be done to present interview in a better than actual form. You should take into consideration following points. An interview should start with a briefing of the interview package, which should include introduction of the interviewee and subject matter on which the conversation would take place. This introduction package should be written in advance and should be read out by the interviewer through teleprompter. Some experienced interviewers choose to do this package extempore, but it depends on his or her personal ability. Graphics for elaborating facts, figures, montage and backgrounders, etc. should be well prepared in advance. An interviewer should follow instructions of program producer when camera starts rolling. 6.4 Ethical practices in interview. There are some ethical guidelines that an interviewer should follow while conducting and presenting an interview. Following these guidelines would help build the reputation of an interviewer into a more authentic and dependable person. Procedures and schedule of the interview should be well documented and handed over to the interviewee in hand or by email before actual commencement of the interview. Venue, time and duration should be decided in consultation with the interviewee. Once decided, the interviewer should stick to it very seriously. Interviewer should be punctual and if decided earlier, he should arrange for a transport to bring interviewee to the venue before time, so that the interviewee has reasonable time to relax and prepare for interview. The interviewee should not feel harassed or interrogated during the interview. Remember that the interview is a conversation, it should not be made a confrontation. The interviewer should not reveal anything said by interviewee off the record. If the interviewer thinks that any revelation by interviewee can harm anyone in any way, he should confirm with the interviewee by asking, "Are you saying this on record? Or, should I note this point as on record?" The interviewer should not put words in mouth of interviewee. However, he may suggest a better explanation only for later approval. Activity. Conduct an interview of any local sportsperson, writer, artist, politician, social worker and write it in the format for print media. 6.5 Summary. Interview is a format which is covered through a conversation between interviewer and interviewee. We can sum up this unit with the some important points. There should be a sound preparation before the interview. We must check equipment of recording before the interview. Interviewer should speak less and let interviewee speak more. Interviewer should be polite but persistent in asking questions. Questions asked should be clear, precise and to the point. Interviewer should cross-check the data and information provided by interviewee before preparing the final draft of the interview. Interview should free from any bias and prejudice. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.